Picture this. A corporation walks away from a business at its absolute peak, leaving competitors baffled and analysts calling it corporate suicide. Fast forward 10 years, and those same competitors are drowning in billion-dollar lawsuits, engine recalls, and bankruptcy courts, while Ford is counting record profits. This isn't fiction. This is the untold story of how Ford Motor Company saw a catastrophe coming that would destroy giants and made the most controversial exit in trucking history. In 1997, inside a modest Kentucky factory, the final Ford Aeromax L9000 rolled silently off the assembly line. No fanfare, no ceremony, just an ending wrapped in questions. 1 year later, Ford, a titan standing toe-to-toe with legends like Mack and Kenworth, shocked the industry with a complete abandonment of the heavy-duty truck market. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Analysts called it surrender. Competitors smelled blood. Trucking magazines wrote obituaries. But here's what nobody understood at the time. Ford hadn't lost anything. They had executed the most calculated retreat in automotive history, escaping a trap that would later claim billions in damages and nearly erase some of the industry's most formidable names. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on why Ford killed its legendary heavy-duty truck division. This isn't just about chrome and diesel. It's a masterclass in corporate survival that changed everything. To grasp why Ford's exit sent shockwaves through the industry, we need to travel back to where it all began, to a vision born in the darkest economic period America had ever faced. During the Great Depression, while businesses collapsed around him, Henry Ford saw opportunity where others saw only despair. His vision wasn't limited to building vehicles. He wanted to construct the very backbone of American infrastructure, one truck at a time. The breakthrough came in 1934. Ford engineers took the proven Model A platform and transformed it into something entirely new. They reinforced the chassis with heavy-gauge steel, upgraded the axles to handle punishment, and dropped in a revolutionary power plant, the flathead V8 engine. This wasn't just an incremental improvement. It was a game-changer that rewrote the rules. With crushing torque and legendary reliability, these trucks enabled miners to reach deeper deposits, farmers to haul larger harvests, and construction crews to move materials previously considered impossible. Ford had cracked the code. Then World War II erupted, and everything accelerated. Ford wasn't just building trucks anymore. They became an essential cog in the American war machine. Transport vehicles, engines, battlefield components. The company mastered the art of building machines that could shoulder extreme loads, run continuously for days, and survive conditions that would destroy lesser equipment. When peace returned in 1951, Ford leveraged everything they'd learned and launched the Big Job line. The name said it all. These trucks were purpose-built for the hardest work America could throw at them. Under the hood sat a massive 501 cubic inch engine, but Ford had an even more shocking ace up their sleeve. The GAW V8, the exact same engine that had powered Sherman tanks across European battlefields. The true apex, however, arrived in 1967 with the introduction of the L Series, better known as the Louisville line. This would be the lineup that dominated Ford's heavy-duty segment for 3 decades straight. The engineering was relentless. Chassis reinforced with thicker, stiffer steel designed to carry tens of thousands of pounds day after grinding day without complaint. But Ford understood that raw strength alone wasn't enough. As the 1970s dawned and fuel prices skyrocketed, while competitors scrambled to respond, Ford was already ahead of the curve. They introduced aerodynamic improvements that seemed subtle, a slanted windshield, a more integrated front-end design. These details might appear minor, but they delivered approximately 10% better fuel economy compared to many rivals. In the world of long-haul drivers operating on razor-thin margins, that 10% difference could mean the gap between profit and bankruptcy. Then, in 1976, the undisputed king emerged, the LTL 9000. You could spot one from a mile away. The LTL 9000 wore the classic long-nose conventional profile like a badge of honor, an extended hood, a low cab, and a massive chrome-plated grille that gleamed like polished silver. But this design wasn't just for aesthetics. The long nose created space for larger engines and provided easy maintenance access, features that both drivers and mechanics appreciated deeply. Under that iconic hood lived engine options from Cummins or Caterpillar, pumping out up to 375 horsepower, truly impressive for the mid-1970s. But horsepower only told part of the story. What really mattered was the massive low-end torque, the ability to pull heavy loads steadily, hour after hour, mile after mile, without breaking stride. And what truly captured drivers' loyalty was what waited inside the cab. Ford invested heavily in driver comfort. Real wood trim, thick carpeting, genuinely comfortable seating, and a spacious sleeper cab large enough to rest properly after 10 or 12 hours of hard driving. These trucks weren't just tools. They were homes on wheels. But just as Ford celebrated their position at the summit of the LTL 9000 era, the company's leadership gazed into a terrifying mirror positioned right beside them, and what they saw made their blood run cold. White Motor Company. The name had once been legendary, a symbol of American trucking excellence. Then it imploded in spectacular fashion. After World War II, White Motor Company had everything: cutting-edge technology, massive market presence, and limitless ambition. Their strategy seemed bulletproof: expand at any cost, acquire aggressively, dominate completely. In less than 20 years, White devoured a string of iconic brands: Sterling Trucks, Autocar, Oliver, Euclid. Each name carried decades of heritage, but also entirely separate systems, different engines, incompatible components, clashing corporate cultures. On paper, the numbers looked spectacular. White's revenue exploded from $130 million in 1950 to $770 million by 1967. Wall Street analysts cheered. Management took victory laps. Confidence soared. But behind the applause and champagne, a financial time bomb was ticking louder with each quarter. Short-term debt surpassed $30 million by 1970. Too many factories operating below capacity. Too many product lines cannibalizing each other. Too many problems with no one in control. White had forgotten the fundamental iron law of heavy-duty trucking. This industry demands enormous capital investment, operates on long development cycles, and punishes mistakes for decades. When the 1973 oil crisis struck like a hammer, margins that were already tissue-thin virtually evaporated. Then came the 1980s, when U.S. interest rates exploded past 20%, transforming borrowing costs from manageable to fatal. The end came swiftly and brutally. White Motor Company collapsed under nearly $1 billion in debt, an astronomical figure that sent shockwaves through the entire industry. The brands they'd acquired to build an empire were forcibly sold off or simply dissolved. A giant had fallen, not because their engineering was weak, but because unchecked ambition had exceeded the boundaries of control. Ford's executives studied White's corpse carefully, and the lesson burned itself into their strategic DNA. They could build world-class heavy-duty trucks. The LTL 9000 proved that beyond doubt. But they also recognized the trap waiting ahead. The deeper they ventured into heavy-duty trucking, the more capital they'd need to commit, not just for engineering, but for regulatory compliance, financing programs, and an increasingly complex aftermarket ecosystem. And they could very easily become the second White Motor Company. As the 1990s began, the landscape of American heavy-duty trucking started shifting beneath everyone's feet, and the changes weren't subtle. First came the Environmental Protection Agency, with diesel emission standards that grew progressively more stringent. Engines needed to run cleaner, cooler, and far more complex than anything the industry had built before. Then followed cascading safety requirements, advanced braking systems, energy-absorbing crumple zones, crash standards that had never applied to traditional long-haul trucks. Each new regulation added cost, complexity, and development time. And hovering over everything was fuel efficiency, a brutal equation when you're dragging tens of thousands of pounds of steel and cargo across thousands of miles. To remain competitive in the heavy-duty segment, Ford would need to invest billions into R&D, developing entirely new engine platforms, conducting endless emissions testing, redesigning chassis from the ground up, and building an aftermarket support ecosystem that satisfied both federal and state regulations. All of that investment, all of that risk, for a market characterized by low production volumes, paper-thin profit margins, and catastrophic technical risk. At the same moment, Ford looked in a completely different direction, and what they saw was crystal clear. F-Series pickup trucks, SUVs, and passenger cars delivering millions of units annually. With the same level of capital investment, the profits came faster, the returns multiplied quicker, and the risk could actually be controlled. For a corporation like Ford Motor Company, this wasn't an emotional decision colored by nostalgia or pride. It was ice-cold mathematics and long-term strategic calculation. Heavy-duty trucks no longer aligned with the trajectory Ford needed to follow into the 21st century. The Louisville line, once a source of immense technical pride, had transformed into a strategic anchor, not because the trucks were inferior, but because the world around them was evolving too rapidly. When that final Aeromax L9000 rolled off the Kentucky assembly line in 1997, it wasn't the end of Ford's engineering capability. It was the precise moment Ford chose a different battlefield, one where they knew with absolute certainty they would dominate. If you believe Ford retreated too early from heavy-duty trucking, then the events of the following decade delivered a brutal answer through a catastrophe known as Navistar and the Max-Force engine disaster. As 2010 arrived, the Environmental Protection Agency officially implemented diesel emission standards requiring a staggering 92% reduction in NOx emissions compared to previous generations. This wasn't a minor regulatory adjustment. It represented a complete philosophical break from traditional engine design. The entire American trucking industry understood the stakes. To survive, manufacturers had to choose a new technological path, accepting greater complexity and substantially higher costs, but with regulatory compliance guaranteed. Most major manufacturers selected the SCR route, using diesel exhaust fluid to treat emissions after combustion. The system added cost, weight, and demanded new logistical infrastructure, but crucially, it kept combustion temperatures and engine reliability within safe operational limits. Navistar chose differently, betting the company's entire future on advanced EGR technology. They believed they could solve the problem more elegantly, recirculating exhaust gases at extreme levels to meet standards without SCR systems. On paper, it appeared brilliant. In reality, it transformed engines into time bombs. To satisfy EPA regulations, the Max-Force EGR system operated at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, triggering a catastrophic cascade of mechanical failures. EGR coolers cracked under thermal stress. Turbochargers experienced dramatically shortened lifespans. Lubricating oil became contaminated with unburned fuel. The engines themselves regularly slipped into dangerous overheating conditions. These weren't problems that emerged after years of hard use. They appeared immediately within the first service intervals. Newly delivered trucks limped back to dealerships. Fleet operators, the lifeblood of any truck manufacturer, lost confidence overnight. Navistar's warranty system buckled under the weight. Class action lawsuits erupted. Contract disputes multiplied. Billions of dollars evaporated on repairs, compensation payments, and EPA violation penalties. Meanwhile, reputation, the single hardest asset to build in this industry, collapsed faster than any balance sheet. By 2016, the Max-Force name was officially terminated, erased not because of insufficient ambition or lack of talented engineers, but because of a catastrophic strategic miscalculation under regulatory pressure. The exact type of fatal mistake Ford had foreseen early and deliberately sidestepped. Looking back with the clarity of hindsight, Ford's decision to abandon the Louisville line no longer resembles surrender. It looks like a perfectly timed escape from a building seconds before collapse. Ford didn't have to gamble on emissions technology. They didn't have to stake their reputation on untested solutions. They didn't have to burn billions in warranty costs and legal settlements. In an industry where a single technical decision can obliterate an entire brand, Ford chose to leave the table while their chips were still intact, their reputation still sterling. Instead of trying to prove themselves at any cost, Ford Motor Company returned to their core strengths: high-volume production, fast development cycles, and total supply chain control. While heavy-duty truck competitors wrestled with emissions disasters, mounting lawsuits, and spiraling warranty costs, Ford quietly concentrated resources on pickup trucks, SUVs, and passenger vehicles, products woven into the daily fabric of American life. History has settled every argument since. The F-Series didn't just become the best-selling vehicle line in the United States. It became the most durable profit engine in automotive history, generating consistent returns year after year, decade after decade. No need for gleaming chrome on cross-country highways. No need for luxurious sleeper cabs. Just a clear understanding of the right customer, at the right moment, with the right product, within the right limits. The Louisville line, therefore, wasn't a chapter of failure. It was a chapter that closed at precisely the right moment. It ended while its reputation remained intact, while its trucks were still remembered with respect and admiration by the drivers who depended on them. Ford exited the heavy-duty truck arena without suffering a fatal wound, an achievement not every manufacturer in this brutal industry has managed to accomplish. If you've ever heard a Louisville's engine roar in your memory, if you've ever caught that distinctive smell of diesel and hot rubber on America's endless highways, then this story belongs to you. Hit that like button to preserve these nostalgic frames of steel and ambition. Subscribe to this channel if you want to continue exploring the legendary machines that built America with nothing but sweat, determination, and rolling wheels. And leave a comment below. Which classic truck lives strongest in your memory? Every subscription brings another forgotten story back to life. This journey through automotive history is far from over. See you on the next one.